Welcome to the 10-Minute Podcast. No time for introductions. We're going to get into our first piece of news here. We're going to be looking at polling. Specifically, we're going to start with some minority polling. Women is a non-starter. The Democrats have the women vote locked down pretty hard for this election. Most elections, that is the case, especially among young women. Republicans aren't going to make any headway with that. But Latino voters, Politico ran an article saying, quote, Dems see warning signs for Harris with Latino men in Pennsylvania. The article further said that Kamala Harris is expected to win the majority of Latino voters in Pennsylvania and nationally, but her weakness among Latino men is worrying to operatives on the ground. The Latino vote is one that historically goes to the Democrat Party pretty consistently. However, it seems that Trump is making a bit of headway in the state of Pennsylvania. African-American vote. Politico ran an article saying, quote, now I like him. Some black voters in Georgia see Trump as a real option. The article continues, for all the support Harris has in the state, Trump is still cutting into her margins, even with some voters who express reservations about him. Now, this is something that is a real struggle for the Democrats this election. We see this really all over the place, but specifically in the swing states, people who have some past reservations about Trump are now willing to overlook those since they've seen the way that the country has been going for the last 4 years. And the Democrats really haven't been able to come up with a good response to this. People are concerned about the economy over the last 4 years. They're concerned about the way that the border has been handled over the last 4 years. And they liked the way that it was under Trump, at least for most of his term. Kamala has, of course, tried to respond to this by saying that she's going to be a fresh face. She's bringing something new and some new change to the Democratic ticket. However, it doesn't seem like voters, specifically independent voters, are falling for that. Let's look at some Gallup polling information here. One study was, in politics as of today, do you consider yourself a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent? This was in October, this October, from the 1st to the 12th. 31% of Americans polled said Republican, 41% said independent, and Democrat was 28%. So obviously, independents there's a lot more independents than those who would identify themselves with one of the two political parties, but a larger amount, by about 3%, were willing to say that they were Republican, and then obviously the 28% were Democrat. However, when we look at, there was another study, as of today, do you lean more to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party? This was asked of independents. Now, this is really interesting. In September of this year, 45% said that they were Republican or Republican-leaning of independents. 49% said that they were leaning Democratic, towards the Democratic Party. However, this month, in October, 49% were leaning towards the Republican Party, and 42% were leaning towards the Democratic Party. So that's quite a swing there towards the Republican Party coming out in this research from Gallup polling. Another report from Gallup, 2024 election environment favorable to the GOP, party affiliation, GOP issue advantages, and economic pessimism among key factors. Now, this was really interesting. They have a key measures of the 2024 presidential election environment chart. And on the chart, they list several different measures, about 8 different measures that they're using to judge people's ratings of the candidates and the parties that they're voting for. Every single measure here, except for 2, according to this article, lean towards Republican. And the 2 that don't, which is party favorable ratings, right, is neither. It's actually Republican Party 43%, Democratic Party 42%, and congressional job approval is 20% approval, which means 80% of American citizens disapprove of the way that Congress is conducting itself. And that obviously falls on neither party as well for party measure favor. But every other measure listed here, economic confidence, party identification and leading, party better able to handle most important problems, U.S. satisfaction, and so forth, all of these are leaning towards Republican. And so if we were to call the election or give a prediction based off of these two or these three Gallup poll, what they have to say, we'd have to give it to the Republicans. Another Gallup poll article here, majority of Americans feel worse off than 4 years ago. This was an interesting. Economic confidence index remained negative at negative 26. It has 39% says that, this is as of September, 39% says yes, they are better off than 4 years ago. 52% says no, they're not better off. That's more than a majority of Americans. And 9% say that it is the same. They are the same as they were 4 years ago. The last Gallup article we're going to be looking at here, at 45%, Harris's approval rating is higher than Biden's. 39% of Americans approve of Biden's job as president, while 16% of Congress's 16% of Americans approve of Congress's performance. So, and this is Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris has a 45% approval rating among U.S. adults. That's for being the vice president, not necessarily for a candidate of the president of the United States. All right, let's get to some election polling. Road to 270, we covered this last week. According to CNN, Harris is up on Trump. Harris has 226 electoral votes, and Trump has 219, according to their simulation. Let's look at a Forbes article. Quote, election 2024 swing state polls. Trump leads in Arizona and Georgia. Harris up in North Carolina. Let's go ahead and just run through some of these states here that I feel like are really important here and have some interesting information. First, we're going to look at Georgia, right? Trump leads Harris 52 to 45% in a Quinnipiac poll released Wednesday after the latest Wall Street Journal poll found her up by 1 point, 46 to 45%. And in October 10th, Emerson poll showed Trump up 1 point, 49% to 48%. Trump leads by 1.8 points in 538's polling average. So Trump is up in Georgia. Pretty slim margins, but not nearly as slim as some of the other states we're going to be looking at here. North Carolina, Harris has a 2-point lead, 49% to 47% in the Wednesday Quinnipiac poll, while Trump is up 1 point, 46 to 45% in the Wall Street Journal poll and holds a 0.7 point advantage in 538's average. Let's look at Pennsylvania. Harris holds a 50% to 47% advantage, closer to 4 points when not rounded up, in a Saturday pair of New York Times, Philadelphia Inquiry, and Siena College polls, and also has the same lead in an October 9th Quinnipiac poll, though Friday's Wall Street Journal poll gives Trump a 1 point advantage, 46% to 45%, and the Thursday Emerson poll also found him up 1 point, 49% to 48%. Trump leads Harris by 0.4 points in 538's polling average. Let's take a look at Michigan. Harris leads Trump's 47% to 45% in the Wall Street Journal poll, a change from the Emerson poll that shows Trump tied with Harris, and from Trump's 3-point lead, 50% to 47%, in an October Quinnipiac poll, though Harris is still up 0.6 points in Michigan in 538's polling average. So the election is razor thin. Polling really could go one way or another. It's so tough right now to trust any of the particular polling sites, especially as it's so close and we see competing views on each state coming from different directions. So it really is a tough election to call right now, and it's going to come down to the next 3 weeks as the candidates continue to campaign. Speaking of the candidates, Trump and Kamala both made headlines this week, of course. Specifically, they were bashing each other in different appearances. Trump appeared at the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner and gave a lengthy speech. It was quite entertaining, to say the least. I found it particularly funny, but Trump took the time. It was about a 30-minute speech to cover a wide range of topics. Specifically, he kept coming back to Kamala Harris, talking about her relationship with her husband, her need for a teleprompter, and her love of migrants, among other things. Kamala had her first Fox News appearance with Bret Baier, and she took the time to repeatedly attack and call out Trump during the interview. According to the New York Times, Kamala Harris arrived to a Fox News interview. It turned into a debate. Now, she and Bret Baier went back and forth during the interview. I would encourage you all to watch it. We're not going to play any clips. We don't quite have time for that, but it was quite entertaining. Not quite as humorous as Trump's speech at the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner, but it was quite entertaining in another way, in that it really did show the back and forth and need for debate among presidential candidates. And not only that, but it showed the need for debate and the lack of debate between Trump and Harris, and really how Americans long for that setting, and we long for a second debate. We really do think that that is something that should happen. But it also highlights, this interview also highlights the polarization of the media and how difficult it is for interviews and debates to happen in a nonpartisan environment. All right, the last thing we're going to be talking about today, Elon introduces an army of Optimist robots. We talked about this a little bit last week, but I really wanted to, first off, show this video, this kind of sneak peek, this trailer for them, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about what this means for us as a culture. So let's watch this.
But fundamentally, at scale, the Optimist robot, you should be able to buy an Optimist robot for, I think, probably $20,000 to $30,000 long term. So, and what can it do? It'll basically do anything you want. So it can be a teacher, babysit your kids. It can walk your dog, mow your lawn, get the groceries, just be your friend, serve drinks.
So there it is, right there. You can have an Optimus robot from Elon Musk. Do we really need this? Do we need robots mowing our lawn, taking care of our kids, cooking, and walking our dog? I mean, it's crazy. All the movies that we have about robots, and this is what Elon Musk is choosing to do with AI and all this stuff. And it's not just Elon, it's certainly all the researchers that are in this. It is quite crazy. And of course, people are going to say, well, those are movies, this is reality, whatnot. The first science fiction book was written by Mary Shelley. It's Frankenstein. A lot of people know Frankenstein, the monster they think it is. Frankenstein's actually the scientist. His monster is just called Frankenstein's monster. Great book. The book wasn't meant to just entertain. Although it is very entertaining, it's a very beautiful story. I would encourage anyone to read the book. There's a message there. Mary Shelley is dealing with a real problem that we human beings struggle with when we try to make ourselves like gods. And it's something that clearly has attached on to the human conscience over the last 200 years. And really, I mean, some amazing movies have come out. Jurassic Park is one of the most famous movies of all time, latching onto this idea of man becoming like gods. And yeah, they're movies, but they reflect something deep about our consciousness and what we think about these things. And they all start in this way. These things being created, whether it's robots, dinosaurs, a monster, doesn't matter what it is, this thing being created, and it seems to be created for the greater good. And then, well, we all know where it goes from there. So we need to decide, and we need to start having these conversations, and we need to start taking it very seriously. AI, robots, the technology has done amazing things, and it has improved lives beyond anything humanity could have imagined. But it's also very dangerous, and we need to make sure we're having real conversations about what that means to us. All right, we're out of time. Make sure you get out, vote. Make sure you're prepared to vote, informed about it. Subscribe to Politics for Teens. Follow us on X, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere you can. Send us an email. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you thought anything was blatantly partisan in this podcast. And we will see you next time on the 10-Minute Podcast.